Good afternoon, everyone. So today we're going to break down what FedNow is, the pros and cons, and speculate just a little bit if this has anything to do with government control, which I really think is important. Before we get into the heart of the video, I do want to do some update on some news. Unfortunately, again, there's been another mass shooting in Alabama. There's been a mass shooting. As you can see here, that 4 confirmed dead, but about 20 people have been injured by this mass killing and people being unalive, unfortunately, at someone's sweet 16 birthday party. So again, um, the problem in America consistently when it comes to not only gun violence, but these mass shootings, mass killings, however you want to label them, as well as mental health crisis in America, um, is at the root at some of these. But we won't get into gun laws and prevention laws because that's time for an entire different video. As we look into Poland and Hungary, they announced that they are now banning the import of grain and fruit from Ukraine. So that's somewhat stifling for Ukraine because that's one of their exports to their neighboring European countries. So I don't know how that's going to affect them economically, but it will have some sort of toll. Let's see here. Graham calls Major Taylor Greene praises of U.S. intelligence leaker irresponsible. All right. So that's a quick update. Unfortunately, again, there was a mass shooting in Alabama at a Sweet 16 birthday party. I don't know. I have some suggestions of what the solutions may be when it comes to gun violence, but of course, in this country, according to the concrete Constitution, because no one ever thinks that the Constitution can change, that's why I call it concrete. But yeah, that's another video. Now, FedNow, the Federal Now Instant Payment Service. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but we're going to break down some pros and cons if you guys are not truly aware of what it is. But let's first go over the pros. So FedNow is the Federal Reserve real-time payment system. Now, it has the potential to revolutionize the way that we conduct transactions because with FedNow, people can enjoy instant payments 24/7. They can have access to their funds 24/7. I mean, eliminating the need for delayed transfers. Because, at first we were using ACH, automated clearinghouse, but this acts a little bit different and is more instant than those ACH payments that usually take anywhere from 2 to 5 business days to clear. But with FedNow, it has a tendency of reducing reliance on traditional banking hours. The RTP, also known as the real-time payment system, this real-time processing capability can enhance financial inclusion, empowering underserved populations and small businesses. And this is kind of a pitch that I've been researching and getting some of the wording from what these people are stating, right? These underserved populations, small businesses, because it increases the access to funds much faster, is of a greater convenience and an increased economic opportunity, supposedly. FedNow's interoperability with the existing payment system can also promote competition and innovation in the payment industry, fostering a more dynamic and customer-centric landscape. Now, that's some of the pros. And I know a lot of you want to know what the cons are. Well, this is somewhat biased, so it's a bias alert, but it's the truth. FedNow is not without its challenges. Let's state that right off the bat. One concern is the potential for fees associated with the use of the system. Now, this is also another way for the feds to track taxes, sales tax, transactional tax. Now, we have to also understand, while the Federal Reserve has stated its intentions to make FedNow affordable for all people, they may still be costs associated with accessing and utilizing their system. Now, particularly, this is for smaller financial institutions. These fees could impact the pricing models of financial services and potentially hinder the adoption of FedNow. But as the federal government has stated, the Federal Reserve has stated, FedNow is actually launching in July of this year. FedNow is launching in July of this year. But another challenge is the implementation timeline. The Federal Reserve aims to roll out this phase in a target completion of July. However, delays or unforeseen issues may arise during the implementation process, potentially affecting the system availability and functionality. This is the way that the federal government steps in and decrease the transaction and business of Cash App, Zelle, Venmo, PayPal, etc. This is how the federal government starts to invade on the public sector when it comes to financial transactions. You have to understand that, because with government implementation, the Federal Reserve plans to implement FedNow as the new payment system that will operate alongside existing payment systems in the U.S. financial infrastructure. Now, the Federal Reserve banks will serve as a core infrastructure providers for FedNow, facilitating the real-time processing for payments between people. The government will work with financial institutions, payment service providers, other businessmen, investors, stakeholders to ensure a smooth and secure transaction to FedNow. Of course. Now, in addition, the Federal Reserve will establish rules, standards, protocols, taxes to govern the operations and security of the system in collaboration with industry people and partners and regulators. Of course, all of those above. But here's another thing. If you guys aren't understanding how FedNow will work, I want you guys to think of eBay. When you go on eBay and you purchase an item, what occurs is you're not paying the seller directly. You're paying eBay, and then eBay pays the seller. If you guys look at the thumbnail, it's a small depiction of how FedNow works. You, the consumer, pays your money for a product on eBay. The money goes to eBay, but in this case, it goes to FedNow. FedNow does whatever it does. Okay, maybe take some taxes off the top, shave a little bit of profit off the top or off the bottom. It doesn't matter. They don't get their cut. And then they send that money to the financial institution in which you're purchasing that product or service. But with that being said, FedNow has the potential to be what some people would like to believe a game changer in the U.S. payment systems. I mean, offering real-time processing capabilities that can enhance financial inclusion, promote competition, and foster innovation. And this is also another way that the federal government is trying to crack down on scams and fraud, check fraud, credit card fraud. I mean, you name it. They're going to try to filter in this FedNow system into every aspect of U.S. financial services, even credit. I guarantee it will occur. However, there are some challenges such as, again, taxes, fees, implementation timeline. They're shooting for July of this year, but who knows? Could be July of 2024. The timeline delays need to be addressed to ensure widespread adoption of this success or this failure, speculating. With careful planning, collaboration, who knows what the oversight of FedNow will be? Who's going to oversight the Federal Reserve? But what I do know, FedNow could be a catalyst for more efficient, inclusive, dynamic payments of different platforms and services in America. That may be it, family. I just don't know, because this system is so brand new and it has government control written all over it. I mean, of course, it was created by the federal government. So I was looking at this article right here. The Fed is rewriting the U.S. payment system. Here's what it means for you and I, right? And we're just going to read a little bit of this. It said it takes days to transfer money or make payments from your bank account. Even apps like Venmo, Cash App, and Zelle make such transaction nearly instant. That's because the federal government has no digital payment system for the entire banking system to utilize in real time. But of course, that's changing now. The Federal Reserve plans to launch its own real-time payment system, also known as RTP, called the FedNow service. The FedNow is years behind tech-based private sector competition. It will be a game changer for transactions in the U.S. It will be the first and only digital instant payment system that is both created and backed by the U.S. government. As a result, many banks will see it as a larger, safer system able to transfer money faster for consumers and businesses. So again, this may overtake even Zelle. But I know a lot of people like using Zelle. FedNow will enable all the banks, any banks in the United States, not just the big ones, to offer instantly available funds and real-time payments to their customers. Okay, so that's essentially what it's going to do. It states that FedNow is the first government-created system for financial institutions to send and receive funds almost instantly. Ideally, FedNow will ensure you'll no longer have to wait a few business days or bid your time over holidays or weekends to receive your money. This means you can make payments, your mortgage, for example, ideally within seconds. You could opt to send funds on the due date rather than having to plan several days out for an online payment to clear up to a week for a check to be processed. We understand what that, it's gonna be a better real-time payment system. But again, it's not that I lean for the pros or the cons, but the power that the federal government is now implementing on a financial institution, meaning creating bigger government. It states here for business owners, this means faster and smoother operations. They will be able to send and receive invoice payments for instant and real time online. Now, and of course, family, if you want to go and read how it works in detail, I kind of broke that down in my pros, but you definitely can go to Forbes Advisor and check this article out for yourself. Now, Motley Fool, I kind of go here to time to get some investing advice on different stocks, but there's some things I wanted to point out here as they wrote this the statement here, and I was kind of just confused by it. It says, as a child, my mother had the habit of dusting off this old proverb: believe nothing of what you hear and only half of what you see. In other words, she wanted me to seek the truth, even if it meant doing some digging. Now, listen to this. When I began to hear gossip about the Federal Reserve FedNow service, I wonder why it was mirrored in drama. And so, adhering to my mother's advice, I sought the truth. It appeared that much of the concern came from the Black community. Motley Fool is doing pieces on the Black community. There were stories about how the Federal Reserve news service, in an attempt to infiltrate the financial affairs of everyday Americans. There were wild tales of how FedNow was shut down Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, and other payment services. That's because it has a propensity to do so. That is why people stated this. And quite frankly, when Black people try to make their own own banks back in the 50s and 60s, what did the federal government and other local governments do? They stole those Black people money in layman's terms. But anyway, I digress. Racism is alive and well in America. Well, thank you, Motley Fool, for letting us know. And banking while Black can be fraught with humility, terrifying experiences. For example, the New York Times told the story of a woman named Clarice Middleton, who accused of fraud by 3 Wells Fargo bank employees, all for trying to cash a $200 check. The police were called. Middleton provided evidence that the check was hers, and the bank finally cashed the check. Now, listen to this. This is how they sway the story at the end of this whole monologue they're giving about this one particular sister. Middleton's experience is not unique. Studies show the largest U.S. banks avoid hiring and promoting minority employees. Whoa, whoa, whoa. That's when I raised a red flag, when we start implementing the minority terms. It just becomes very dire for me, because first you state in your earlier part of this monologue about Clarice Middleton and banking while Black, and to kind of do something like the Congressional Black Caucus or the NAACP or the Urban League. It's Black, 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 then all of a sudden it's about minorities. And believe me, family, minority is everybody except white men. I digress. In addition, New America found that large banks have targeted minorities, including Native Americans, undocumented immigrants, That's illegal immigrants. I guys want you to focus on the language here. Illegal immigrants by opening accounts and lines of credit in their names, but without their consent. When someone complained, the bank closed the accounts rather than conduct an investigation. In a nutshell, the gossip regarding FedNow mostly rings true in the ear of those most oppressed by the U.S. banking system. Fortunately, we had Terry Williams to turn to for a dose of truth. Williams, listen to this. This is how they solidify, verify, and validate in order for Black people to go in on something that we probably would never contribute to. We wouldn't even be a part of, admin to. But this is how they do. They use Black people. They use a Black face. So here we go. Fortunately, we have Terry Williams to turn out for a dose of truth. Williams is the president and COO of One United Bank, the largest Black-owned bank in the U.S. She is also keenly aware of the uphill battle minorities face in the world of banking. We got Black-owned, we got minorities. In a recent phone call, right? And now they're breaking down what is FedNow, okay? So we're going to go over this very quickly. FedNow serves a new instant payment service and development. The goal is to enable financial institutions of every size to provide safe and efficient instant payment services in real time, around the clock, every day of the year. Williams, this is a good thing. This is the Black COO of the largest Black-owned U.S. bank, okay? The Fed is starting to accommodate consumer and business needs to transfer money more quickly than has historically been the case. First, there were checks. There were mail, had to go through the post office and then deposit into a bank account. It took days for those checks to clear and become available to the consumer or businesses. Then there's automated clearinghouse, also known as ACH. Although it was faster than mailing a check, it still takes 1 or 2 days for payments to clear, okay? Through financial institutions, the participant in the FedNow service, that means individuals like you and I, and businesses like yours, will be able to send and receive payments instantly. And here's Williams backing it up. With fintech apps like PayPal, Cash App, and Venmo, money is transferred from one party to another instantly. This makes the Fed's current process too slow. The Fed has been working to speed up the time it takes to process money through the banking system. In essence, the Fed is catching up with how quickly fintech companies can transfer money. Now, if we already have apps, as they stated, like Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, all of these instant money transfer system, why does the federal government have to get involved? You know, because when the federal government put caps on the amount of money that you guys can transfer in a day, and they would say, oh, it's not necessarily from the federal government, it's from your bank. But guess where the bank get the red tape from? Because the banks, the more that you transfer, the more that the banks can essentially make money off, the more that people want to do business with. So I know that the banks are not limiting the amount of money you can transfer in a day. Now, if it's over $10,000, that's automatically a red flag to the IRS, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know how that story goes. But essentially, this is the federal regulations and caps that they put on these fintech apps. But now the Federal Reserve is coming in with the FedNow system. Now, from my banter here, kind of my tone that you guys are receiving, you may say, oh, he's definitely against FedNow. I'm still up in the air about it, family. I'm still doing my research. I've been to many websites, reading, trying to understand how the system is going to work, how the fees are going to work, but the information is just not out there just yet. The only real information that is concrete and stone you can get from the FedNow website. As I showed you this before, here's the FedNow website, located, of course, with the Federal Reserve. So we're waiting for that. Now, it states here, why bother making a change when apps like PayPal, Cash App, and Venmo are already making instant money transfer? That's the question that people want to know, right? With FedNow, financial institutions and their service providers will be able to use the service as a springboard to provide innovative instant payment service to customers. Okay. That's why we have PayPal. That's why we have Cash App. Remember, what the Fed is doing will allow customers to make instant transfer into their banks. That's not the way apps like PayPal or Cash App work. Currently, users can instantly transfer money from app to app, but it's not anyone's bank account. If someone wants to transfer money from their app to their bank account, it will still take a couple of days. Why is that? That is because the federal government has regulations and stipulations on these fintech financial apps like a Cash App and Venmo and PayPal, that money has to be sitting in somewhat, I want to say escrow, but in an account in order to be cleared. Because I always think, even though the federal government moves very, very slowly, family, that doesn't mean they don't have a plan already in place. If that makes sense to somebody, please let me know, because I want to make sure I'm making sense, because these apps has the ability to do this, but where is the red tape coming from? Well, the red tape is coming from the federal government. When will FedNow launch? Now, again, as I told you before, they're looking for July of this year, 2023. These savings accounts are FDI insured and could earn you 13 times your bank. It states here many people are missing out on guaranteed returns as their money languishes in a big bank savings account, earning next to no interest. I'll pick the best online savings account can earn you 13 times the national average. Blah blah blah. But yeah, family, this is FedNow in a very, very small nutshell. And we have to point out our friends from the GOP party, more Ron DeSantis, also known as Ron DeSatan. It states here that DeSantis and RFK Jr. misconstrued Fed's digital plans and warning of government overreach. Now, just because we may not side or agree with any of what these guys are saying does not mean that in any of their rhetoric or their statements or implications of what they're stating about FedNow, that doesn't mean that it's not true. As people would say, a broken clock is, at least right twice of the day. So that doesn't mean that these guys hasn't done their homework. I doubt it. But anyway, that doesn't mean they haven't done their homework. But let's just read a little bit of what's going on with this particular story. I see I got Brent C in the room, Real Talk James, Jermaine Anderson. Nice to see everyone in the room today. Thank you guys for joining me here live. So let me continue here. As the Federal Reserve looks to modernize banking, two potential 2024 president candidates have accused the central bank of seeking to use a proposed digital dollar to control Americans' finances. Although federal officials have committed to no such plans, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis alleged last weekend that a Fed-made digital U.S. dollar will let the government block transactions like buying a rifle or filing up with too much gas. Now, I want you to listen to this, because when I was reading this, I was like, this is actually true. This is actually a real thing, because when you're making that payment and it has to go through the FedNow service, it's more so of a verification service, is it not? Even though it's a real-time payment, but it's a verification. So if there's a red flag, maybe on your public record or any of the such, maybe you had mental health and you have some indicators that you could be a potential mass shooter of any sort, they can block the purchase of you buying a weapon. They can block the purchase if you're trying to stack up on gas. Just like the pandemic, people were buying, napkins and paper towels and toilet paper. I don't know. It was going crazy. They could actually block you buying certain things and products and services that you may need or of what you want. Now, in some regards, this could be a good thing. But in other regards, doesn't this put a strain on your so-called U.S. freedoms, the freest country in the world? I'm just asking questions, because even though I don't agree with nothing really Ron DeSantis or John F. Kennedy Jr. actually even says, but that doesn't mean they're not making a valid point. Let me read it again. The Fed-made digital U.S. dollar will let the government block transactions like buying a rifle or filling up with too much gas. He added, speaking at a Pennsylvania conference on Saturday, they are going to try to impose ESG agenda, referring to private sector policies amid advancing environmental, social, and governance principles, which conservative lawmakers across the country have been pushing to curb. Is ceding the power of our financial freedom to a central bank which does not have our interests at heart. Now, the Republican governor, who has been widely floated as a potential primary rival to former President Donald Trump, has introduced legislation in Florida seeking to ban the use of any Fed-issued digital currency in the state and has called on other states to do the same. The Fed is readying its FedNow initiative, which aims to shorten the time it takes for banks to send funds to other banks for a planned July rollout. Separately, has also been exploring the possibilities of issuing a digital version of the dollar that households could readily use instead of cash. The central bank issued currency will be used in digital wallets offered by private sector, including by consumer lenders. Wow. This is the way that the federal government is now getting into cryptocurrency. Because cryptocurrency, family, I mean, in a nutshell, we know that it's digital currency. So now we're talking about a digital dollar. And I guess this digital dollar is going to be backed by the US federal government. But what are digital dollars backed by? Because at one point in time, prior to 1971, the American dollar was actually backed by the 8,100 tons that we have of gold in our gold reserves. But ever since 1971, when Nixon took us off the gold standard of the dollar into the fiat currency system, meaning we just have a revolving door of debt and IOUs, the dollar was backed by gold. So what does a digital dollar backed by? Is it backed by blockchain technology? Is it blocked by electricity? These are questions I've been, rolling around in my head trying to answer, and maybe you guys know the answer. I have no idea. But it is a great question. Is this a way that the federal government comes in, standardize, regulate digital currency, cryptocurrency, as they've been trying to do in the past couple of years, now that you have to file any earnings that you make on cryptocurrencies and your taxes? And if not, they'll wait for 10, 20, 30 years, and basically you owe $300,000 in taxes and take your house. That's the way the federal government works. If you notice, every now and again, the federal government wait a year or two and say, yeah, you owe $10, $12, $15,000. But did you know, family, prior to the 1980s, back in the 60s, 70s, the federal government used to wait 10, 20 years. And then some people will say when the paperwork catched up, they would just come in and put a lien on your house and take it from you. It says here the Fed is exploring the idea to keep up with the countries that have moved to implement their own digital currencies, such as China. We're always competing with China. This is really a big, see, when I look at this whole situation, we have to look at it at a worldwide and on a worldwide spectrum. China is number 2 in GDP in the world. And people have them in the next 10 to 20 years predicting that China will be the new superpower in the world. And of course, America is going to try to do everything in its power to prevent that. We've talked about the BRICS before, right? Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And other countries are now joining the BRICS. Even the Kenyan president, I think it was the Zimbabwe secretary came out and state that they're no longer honoring US dollars. They're no longer using US dollars. Now, Kenya, that was a story for the headlines. Now, I might look that up for you guys so you can see it for yourself, because I don't want to speculate here when it comes to money. Let me continue. But officials made clear that they're not committed to following through on issuing one. And Fed Chair Jerome Powell has said that the central bank wouldn't issue any consumer-facing digital dollar without authorization from Congress. That part. He didn't state that they wasn't doing it or they will not do it. They're saying that they can't do it without authorization from Congress. That sends off a red flag to me, stating that this is potential. This may happen. They already have the legislation written up and probably waiting for it to pass or to present to the House to be passed. We haven't decided that this is something the financial system in the country will want or need, so that's going to be very important, Powell told Congress on March 8th. Now, I want to look up very quickly countries who stated they no longer want to use the US dollar. Give me 1 second. Because this is the way America have been trying to really match up with their Chinese. Here we go. So, this is a really good one, family. Remember I was saying to you guys back in 1971, Nixon ceased the direct convertibility of the US dollars to gold, right? And this is a good breakdown. Brazil and Argentina discussed the creation of a common currency. Russia and Iran are working together to launch a cryptocurrency backed by gold. Even cryptocurrencies are now being backed by gold by other governments. Very important. Something needs to be tangible, a precious metal, something rare in the elements that people can actually hold on to. If it's not backed by anything, then what is it worth? When you look at Saudi Arabia and other countries, some of their money is backed by their oil, by their large amounts of oil. So when we look at these things, as I told you back in 1971, Nixon changed the dollar being backed by gold to the dollar being backed by nothing. That's why America can print billions and billions of dollars and just give it to people and say, yeah, you can go buy what you want, because that US dollar is backed by the full faith of the United States government. Wait a minute, it's not backed by gold? No. Is it backed by diamonds? No. Is it backed by oil? No. Is it backed by agriculture? No, no, and no. It's not backed by anything. And that's why these non-GMO groups like the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, are now stating and moving away from the US dollar because it's not backed by anything. Now, on hand, US has the most gold. We have 8,100 tons of gold. We have the most gold on hand as of today. But there's other countries that China is invading, is doing deals with, settling with, like countries in Africa that gold has yet to be discovered, but has been found in the elements in the surrounding areas and some of these rural areas in Africa, out in the bush, out in the wild, that China wants to go in and mine this gold, because that is a prediction in 10 to 20 years that China will be the new world largest superpower based on their production and mining and storing of gold. The U.S. government is trying to do anything they can to stay in power, the world superpower. Now, even if China surpasses America, according to their GDP, America will still be the most powerful country in the world, backed by the strongest military in the world. This is why. So let me go back really quickly. As I told you before, I'm trying to find maybe a really good list of a lot of the countries that, as they're stating here, de-dollarization. Again, we go back to the BRICS. I want to see if they have a list here, family. If you can just bear with me. And if people would like to believe that Russia doesn't have any friends, well, let me tell you some of the Russian friends. Let me tell you some of the Russian friends. Iran, Argentina, Venezuela, China, India. See, a lot of these countries are doing big business with Russia. So Russia is still one of the world's oldest superpowers as well, especially when they were the Soviet Union before Ukraine and other countries broke away from it. So again, I wish I could find you guys a quick list, because there are some African countries other than South Africa that is really breaking away of the US dollar. So I think I found something here for you guys that we can all look at together very quickly. Give me 1 second. Here we go. If you look at the very top here, here are some of the countries that's breaking away from the US dollar. A number of African countries, including Kenya, Egypt, Zimbabwe, Nigeria, Ghana, and Zambia, are currently experiencing shortages of US dollar. The dollar is the dominant currency in international transaction. These countries rely on the US currency to pay for foreign debts, essential goods, and industrial inputs. Development economist Christopher Adams explains, blah, blah, blah. But yes, those are some of the African countries, as well as South Africa, are really thinking about de-dollarization of the US currency in the international markets for exports and imports. So when people are looking at this information, I keep hearing that, oh, the BRICS doesn't have the power to topple the dollar. The BRICS doesn't have the amount of countries. Yes, the BRICS can absolutely hurt America economically. Yes, it can. The more countries that join the BRICS, the less influence, the less groundbreaking of maneuvering that we have around in these different countries. Because America, we have like a U.S. military base in almost every country in the world, with the exception of a couple of countries like Russia, North Korea, etc. Very few countries, in China as well. But we have almost a U.S. installation, a U.S. base, a U.S. camp in almost every country in the world, except for some of those countries I named. So what does this mean? We're going to lose foothold in some of these countries militarily. Like our strategic influence on the military standpoint may decrease because economy and economics is the driver of military. Because guess what you need? You need strong GDPs to keep a strong military. So when you guys go back, when this system is implemented in July, I want you to refer back to this video. And I want you to ask yourself this question. Is this a way for the federal government to now control every purchase you will make from that moment on? Because they will have eyes on every transaction that you will ever make. Because as I stated before, this is almost like eBay, where you see something on eBay, you purchase it, the money goes to eBay. In this case, it goes to FedNow, and then it goes to the seller. And if you think the federal government is not going to shave some money off the top or the bottom of this, then you'll be the fool with that. Because let's go over the pros again, because I don't want people to think I'm against FedNow, but I do want to raise the questions, because the Federal Reserve RTP payment system, right? The real-time payment system. As I stated before, it has the potential to revolutionize the way that we conduct our transactions. FedNow uses you and I, we can access and send funds 24/7 instantly, eliminating the need for delayed transfer and reducing the reliance on traditional banking hours, right? Always waiting for your ACH, the automated clearinghouse, to clear. Oh, how long is it going to take? Oh, well, sir, it's going to take around 2 to 5 days. 2 to 5 days? I need it there today. I guess I got a Western Union some money. But this real-time processing capability can enhance financial inclusion, financial sending, financial receiving, etc., which empowers people of all communities, small businesses as well as big businesses, because with faster access to funds, that means greater convenience and increased economic opportunities for all, right? Right? Because, FedNow's interoperability with the existing payment system, with the ACH, doesn't promote competition, but with an instant system, it does. And of course, it's innovative in the payment industry. They're on the same length and same wavelength and spectrum as Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal. And the cons again. There's a lot of challenges here. There's a lot of questions. Big government control. Questioning every transaction you will make or you have made. In cahoots with the different financial systems and banking system and credit systems in America. You probably, any purchase over $10,000 maybe now question, even a car. Making sure you pay your fair share of taxes. No longer using the tax loopholes, the gray areas within a tax code in order to not pay taxes, in order to avoid taxes. And some of you are like, oh, that's just for rich people. No. The people who pay the most taxes, family, are the middle class. Those people making $45,000 to around $200,000 a year. You and I are the ones who are paying the most taxes in America, because anyone below $45,000 just ain't making enough to pay large amounts of taxes, right? And then people who are making over $200,000, believe me when I tell you this, they have high-powered, probably retired or fired or left IRS CPAs that knows how to maneuver in and out of the tax code for them to avoid paying taxes. Because at the end of the day, there's a couple of people within this tax, this tax matrix. You got those who just want to pay their taxes. They don't really mind but they want their return. Then you have people making buku dollars who say, hey, I just don't want to pay any taxes. I don't care about a freaking refund. I make $250,000 a year. I make $1 million a year. So I always owe, even when my little W-4 comes out and I say I'm single in one or I'm married in two. I claim myself and my family, and I still have to pay additional taxes other than the amount that they already took out. So CPA, use your loopholes. That is legal. Again, family, that is legal. Use your loopholes. I just don't want to owe any money. That is very important. Because the one concern that people have with this FedNow system are the fees and the taxes that will be associated with using the system. Nobody knows how much, right? Of course, it's going to be a percentage of the amount that you pay, like sales tax. So my question is this now. Fees. A lot of you already pay state taxes. A lot of you already pay sales tax. A lot of you already pay shipping. So I want you to think about the additional fees that will be tacked on when the FedNow service become active in July. Now, they say that the Federal Reserve stated its intentions to make FedNow affordable for all participants. What if FedNow went off your last tax return of how much they should tax you for each transaction? What if you're a business owner and a lot of you are sole proprietors, or maybe you have multi-member LLCs, maybe it's one or two of you, and let's say you had a really good year. And now what FedNow is, because we understand the taxes are a year behind, they're going to increase your fees or set your fees according to the amount of money you made last year. I'm speculating with this. I'm not stating that this is going to happen, but this is something that I'm just questioning. Again, America is always finding out to take more money out of our pockets. They can't just implement a system that does instant payments, because you know what people are going to say? Well, Ross, how are they going to pay for this system? How are they going to pay for this FedNow system? They're already paying federal taxes. It's kind of like a lot of my military buddies used to say. They say, hey, man, we get paid with federal tax dollars. And people are like, well, yeah, but don't you know we get paid with federal tax dollars? So the federal tax dollars are paying military members, as those military members are paying federal taxes. I want you guys to think on that for a moment. Just think about that for a moment here. Now, as I stated before, with some of these fees, there may still be costs associated with accessing and utilizing this system. Now, particularly for smaller financial institutions, people who have their own businesses, these fees could impact the pricing models of financial services and potentially hinder the adoption of FedNow. Now, another red flag here. What is going to happen with Cash App? What is going to happen to Venmo? And what is going to happen with PayPal and Zelle? These are the questions I think you guys should ask. These are questions I think you guys should ask. But again, I just want to make you aware. At this point, there's really nothing that none of us can do. Right? We can contact our congressmen. We can write to our governors. Because again, this is a federal system. So states may have some limitations on the FedNow system. So once this thing rolls out and put into practice in everyday transactions, that is when we'll know more information. Because right now, I'm just going to tell you, family, other videos and other people you hear speak about this, at this point, it's just bias, it's banter, it's speculation, and in some forms, it's predicting. We're trying to predict what's going to happen. But I can tell you this, anything that occurs in the federal government, just know it's going to have some fees. Just know it may incur some taxes. Ain't nothing free coming from the federal government except for your except for your tax refund that they tax. Now, I don't know if you guys knew this, and some of you may think I'm joking when I say this, but as your CPA, when you pay your taxes and you file for your tax return and you issue a refund, while they're computing all these algorithms and numbers, I don't know how complicated your taxes are. I have a few investments accounts, so my taxes take a little bit longer than most Americans, but nonetheless, ask them while they're preparing your taxes, are there any taxes imposed on getting your tax refund, on your tax refund? Just a question. Ask your professional. I don't want to speculate on that, but I think it's a good question to ask. I thank you all for joining me here today. If you just joined the video, please go ahead and rewind it. There's some good information I put out I think you guys should be aware of. Track says, bring back Roswell ASAP. I thought about bringing back Roswell. I know a lot of people like the investment advice, but the truth behind it, family, I'm still going to do some investment advice every now and again, but my focus is 99% on Black empowerment, and I got about 1% on empowering the nation for investments, because I do give information, third party with investments, savings accounts, constructing your business, how you should structure it, how you should go about it. So good point there, Trax. I'll try to put out more financial information for you guys. But like I stated before, I'm going hard on Black empowerment because our people absolutely need it. There's voices out there in the Black media. There's voices out there in the Black empowerment space. And believe me, we need more of us to be teaching us not only about what's going on, about the attacks of the dominant society and how they use trick language to manipulate and decimate our people each and every day, and how they put blackface in front of us, right? We talked about, I forgot the two gentlemen name from the Tennessee legislator. We talked about those two at a certain point. There's other people in the Black empowerment space who spoke about those two as well. Again, a lot of this rhetoric, a lot of this show and tell that you see from these Black political pundits, this is all to galvanize the vote from the Black grassroots to vote in yet another Democratic president that will do absolutely nothing for us unless they state it, because we understand that Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, it doesn't matter. No president, whether it be Democrat or Republican, has done what we all want and what we are all owed, and that is reparations. I'm tired of hearing people that are from a foundational Black American lineage, regardless if they accept the term or not. I'm just tired, not frustrated, but I'm tired of hearing illiterate, uninformed Negroes talking about go out and work for what you want and stop begging the U.S. government for money. We're not begging anyone for anything. We are show and telling and proving and demanding what you owe to foundational Black Americans, U.S. melanated freedmen, those descendants of Black slaves. Just as well you gave Native Americans reparations, we are owed reparations too.